Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jared Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
it doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold
I have received an email.
Don't forget to email the show at heeltotheface@hotmail.com.
best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah, New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got two for ya.
Tweet us using the handle at Heel to the Face.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jared.
I might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
Heel to the Face podcast is on the air for the very first edition of 2018 as we are coming to you live from a place that we are known for snow and we are known for cold, but we are at historic levels, and most likely if you are listening to us anywhere on the East Coast, we hope you're snuggling up with some hot chocolate and tuning in for our Heel to the Face podcast. For this week's edition, we are joined as always with Brandon, the Icebreaker Clements. You can find him on Twitter at Icebreaker21, and myself, Jared Wicks, and we are going to get to our main concept.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
The main event of the evening tonight, well, actually this morning. And while we just got on the air just shortly after Wrestle Kingdom 12, I've heard very, very vaguely, it was a great show, but to give it justice, we haven't watched it here yet. So we are holding out until we can watch it. And because there's so much snow, I'll personally have lots of time to watch it. It's a 6.5-hour show from what I saw.
Somebody's got a snow day tomorrow.
Somebody's got a snow day. So I'm going to have lots of time to watch it. And next week we will break down the show. But I do want to say some things that you don't need to watch the show. Some just priors. First off, we all know that it was on at 3 a.m. Local time, 2 a.m. with the pre-show here, Eastern time zone. Not so bad on the Pacific, midnight. But my question comes is this. Why is it on a Thursday? I mean, again, this is the WrestleMania, and I don't know customs in Japan, but I got to believe that weekends are weekends there.
I would think.
Why, if anybody knows, why is it on a Thursday? And another question. Now, you may not know the time difference. You know that it's on at 3 a.m. in America.
Yeah.
But locally, the pre-show was scheduled for 4 p.m. local time. 5 p.m. was the main show. And while, yes, I said it was a 6-hour show, so I can kind of understand why, it would start early. But again, 5 p.m. on a Thursday, that doesn't bring WrestleMania to me.
No, it was, the timing of it is really weird. I mean, here's the thing. It's in the middle of the week. That's my biggest qualm with it. It should be on a Saturday or a Sunday, like you said, on the weekend. And, because of that, I personally haven't had a chance to, look at the tape, so to speak. I'm looking forward to it. I've been getting texts from a few of my friends that are big wrestling fans as well, and they're like, "Oh, you got to see this match and that match." So I'm actually looking forward to it. So stay tuned for next week. We're gonna break it. We want to give it justice. We don't want to just talk the basics about it. We want to really break it down for you guys next week. So
here's what I want to break down to start the show, and that's the announcement that Kurt Angle made. And I'm not really in favor of this. So it is official that the Royal Rumble 2018, we all knew there would be a women's Royal Rumble. They've been milking that for a few weeks now, but it's official. There's no more speculation. It will be 30 women. They want to do it just like the men. The problem is they don't have the manpower, quote unquote, to do it just like the men. 30 women in the Royal Rumble. Do you like this, Brandon? I personally don't. It's way too many.
I like it for one reason and one reason only. You're going to see all of Raw. You're going to see all of SmackDown, and you're going to see probably all of NXT. So you're going to see some names you haven't seen before.
But that's the problem. See, the part of the Royal Rumble is the surprise factor. And I understand you're going to see lots of surprises because there's so many spots you have to have a lot of surprises.
I wouldn't put it past WWE to bring somebody back in like the stature of maybe like a Trish Stratus or a Lita, something along those lines.
It seems almost all certain that they have to. There's going to be like 5 spots. See, the WWE is perfect because of the fact that they have enough wrestlers to fill the spots. That's what makes the surprises the surprises. Here, you know there's going to be surprises because every single woman on the roster is already going to be out there. And again, it's tough because you're doing this at a time where you have 2 women's champions, and it's all but certain. I mean, I could say 100% there will be no women's championship matches at the Royal Rumble because you can't, just get the well that dry the night of the Royal Rumble. But, that's the problem. I think 20 is good because it's an incentive. In NCAA basketball, a lot of people love that there's 68 teams in the NCAA, championship tournament because there's 400 teams to pull from that. If there was 68 teams and there were 68 teams in the tournament, it would lose a lot of its luster. And that's the problem with the Royal Rumble here is there's no incentive. The men's Royal Rumble, for example, has people who declare, for example, we've seen this throughout the week. People have been declaring for the Royal Rumble. I don't need to see women declaring for the Royal Rumble. We know they're in. Are you a woman? You're in. So seeing the the Riot Squad and seeing Paige,
we'll see. We'll be in the match.
Rumble. Of course, you'll be in the Rumble.
I mean, who else is going to be in?
Yeah.
I get it. I get that. I do think there's going to be some. I would aside from you're going to get some call ups. I think from the NXT side, you're going to see the Iconic Duo getting called up from NXT. I think that's one of the obvious ones that's going to happen. I feel like there's going to be some talent that we haven't seen in a while. Maybe we'll see some talent from, maybe they worked out contracts with people behind the scenes, some legends. I'm interested. I mean, here's my thing. I love the 30 concept. I think it's going to be fine.
See, I dislike the 30 concept and add to the fact that we have a Royal Rumble that night, a men's Royal Rumble. So I feel that the 20 concept, I don't feel it's pushing it. I feel there can be too much Royal Rumble, but I don't feel the 20 concept is pushing it. But when you push to the 30, now we're talking that's going to be 60 total people in the Royal Rumble. That's going to be 2 full hours of Royal Rumble at this pay-per-view. I think then you're pushing it because when you have 2 of the same matches, for example, when you have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, one of those matches might go 45 minutes. One of those matches might go a half an hour, might be the long main event. But again, another one of those matches is a squash. You used to see this back in the day. WrestleMania would have a huge card of 14 matches. 2 or 3 of those matches would go 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah,
and
a squash.
Then the main events would go longer. The problem with this, with 30 people, is we don't have that kind of shorter Royal Rumble. We don't have that quote unquote pre-show Royal Rumble. We're gonna have 2 full Royal Rumbles, and I wonder if it kind of takes away at all from the men's Royal Rumble later in the night because we've already sat through a full hour. What's nice again about having a 20-woman Royal Rumble is it's meaningful. It's a women's Royal Rumble. It's going to have surprises. It's going to have people left out of the Royal Rumble, which makes it going to be more valuable to be in. You're not going to be able to just do simple math. When number 30 hits, you're not going to be able to just say, I know who it is because all these people have been picked. And then the fact that it might be shorter, it might be 30 or 40 minutes, will make it so it's not. Then when the 30-man Royal Rumble comes in, you feel like you got
let me ask
an
you
appetizer.
This.
I feel the women's Royal Rumble should be an appetizer.
Let me ask you this. Speaking, moving from the men or the women's side to the men's side of the Royal Rumble, who do you see any big surprises in the men's? Any predictions? Any early predictions? I like to see somebody like Carlito or something along those lines getting coming back. Maybe.
Do I see any surprises in the men? Not really. I mean, because some of these surprises you don't know. I mean, like you say, like a Carlito. Yeah, I mean that could very well be. Do I see any mainstay surprises? Do I see any actual returns?
I think a lot of them are going to be one-off.
Maybe Big Cass.
Maybe. I mean, when was the ACL? That was a little while back. It's close.
But when it comes to there's a lot of people who could very well come out there. I mean, you have a lot to contend with. You obviously have, Albert in the back who works with WWE staff.
You're going to have one-off?
You could have that if that's what you're talking about when you come talking about surprises. Yes.
I mean, I say surprises as a whole, either whether it's one-offs or, they stay on the roster for a little bit.
One-offs is hard to predict because, it could be anything. We saw Diesel come in a few years ago. We've seen, when it comes to the one-off, we've seen Drew Carey. We've seen everything.
Do you see
when it comes to the mainstays, like the returns of the big shows, the returns of the John Cenas, I'm trying to say Big Cass is one of the only ones I can think of at this time.
Any NXT names you're looking at this point?
And what was it last year? We saw Ty Dillinger make his quote-unquote debut.
Yeah, perfect 10 at number 10.
He didn't really make his debut. He kind of was in the Royal Rumble. Yeah. He made his debut a little bit later. So who do I see, maybe a one-off and not so much making their debut full-time? Maybe, Aleister Black.
I'd love to see Aleister Black in the Royal Rumble match.
Maybe
I think
Adam Cole.
if they're gonna bring Adam Cole in, I think they got to bring in the whole team. They got to bring in Fish and O'Reilly. You know what I mean? I think they should bring them both in. Bring the whole crew.
Again, that's hard to bring in, the whole team, because again, the great concept about the 30-man Royal Rumble is there's more than 30 men between SmackDown and Raw.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we can't be wasting 4 or 5 spots just so we have a whole team of people who aren't even going to be there. Because again, we're speaking one-off. So it's like,
well, they're due to come up. They're due to come up anyways. That whole crew's they're coming up.
Yeah, I don't see them coming up at this time though, because of the fact that NXT I treat like a third brand, and they got to market that brand, and they can't always be just ripping the roster out, to bring it to WWE. They got to sell NXT as well. So I feel that Adam Cole is definitely going to stay through TakeOver, at the Royal Rumble the night before, and through WrestleMania. I feel we're going to see a lot more of Adam Cole before we get maybe after WrestleMania he might get called up, but before that I see.
It's too bad. It's too bad what happened to Drew McIntyre with his injury. I was hoping to see him making the back. I mean, his return to the main roster. It's been a few years. I was hoping to see that, but obviously he's going to be down and out for a while. So unfortunately, we're going to have to wait and see what happens there. But I think the big name that's going to be he's going to be a superstar, on the main roster as soon as he gets up there. It's Aleister Black. I've been on that train since he's made his debut. He is one hell of a talent. He's got such a great aura about him. I think he's going to be a superstar. Another surprise, maybe in that Ty Dillinger sense, but I think if it's going to be in that Ty Dillinger sense, maybe it's almost like a one-off, and then he goes back to NXT. You don't see him for a while and keeps developing. I'd like to see Velveteen Dream. That's just me. I want to see Velveteen Dream. That match between Aleister Black and him showed how much he's come in the last few years since Tough Enough. So I could see.
I like the contrast in styles when they meet.
It was awesome.
That's very entertaining. Moving on to SmackDown, we know for sure at the Royal Rumble, the main event that we will have on the SmackDown side for the WWE Championship, AJ Styles will take on both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. And obviously the big takeaway from this is not that championship match. It looks like they're setting the seeds, more than just setting the seeds. Now they're putting the footprint down for Shane McMahon versus Daniel Bryan.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. That's going to happen at WrestleMania. I would be highly surprised if you don't see Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon at WrestleMania. They're planting the seeds. You're seeing these little jabs at each other. Every week, I feel like there's a new layer to this storyline. So I'm definitely interested to see what's going to happen. We'll obviously get into how that match plays out when we get to the pay-per-view, but I think that's going to be a great match. Sami Zayn and AJ Styles, or Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles. Even any one of those combinations would be great, but we're getting all three, so I think it's going to be a good match.
We still have 3 Raws and SmackDowns leading up to the Royal Rumble.
A lot of time.
What do you think that we can do to keep things fresh? Because, that's 9 hours of Raw, 9 hours of SmackDown.
You know what? One of the things I would say is SmackDown's doing the right thing. They have this United States Championship tournament going on, so that's one thing that's going to help.
Well, correction, yeah, I just said 9 hours of SmackDown. That's actually 6 hours of SmackDown.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant.
Which is essentially, if you look at just breaking down that hour over this 3-week period, you break down the SmackDown as 1 less hour. That means they're essentially one whole less show in that same period of time, because Raw will be 9 hours, SmackDown will be 6 hours. So SmackDown essentially has to just put on 2 Raws.
I'm not worried about it. 2 things that SmackDown has going for it. 1, they have the tournament going. Number 2, it's only a 2-hour show. So I think SmackDown is going to be in a little bit better shape for having good content going forward with the storylines they have going on. I'm more interested to see what's going to happen with Raw. I want to see what they're going to do the next couple weeks here before the pay-per-view. What I did like on Raw this past week was we got to see a little reunion. Yes, that was awesome. It was great because I see the little segment where Kurt Angle is in his little area backstage and Balor's talking to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I got a couple good brothers." And I'm like, "Oh, yep, here we go."
Well, with everything that's going on in the tag team division with Jason Jordan and Seth Rollins, and more or less the Bar still being relevant in tag teams, I feel that Gallows and Anderson have kind of fallen off a little bit.
Yeah, they haven't. They've kind of disappeared.
They have kind of disappeared. They were one of the main teams in WrestleMania last year in that tables, ladders, and chairs tag team match. They were one of the 3 original teams announced for the Raw tag team titles. I believe they were the champions heading into that night. So
I think so.
They've kind of fallen off. This keeps them relevant, as well as it gives Finn Balor some freshness as well. Obviously, we were talking a few months ago about his staleness with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
So this keeps him fresh. And what's nice is it not just keeps them relevant, but it might be able to elevate them into not maybe a mainstay when it comes to like contending for the championship equally, but kind of at one of these middle pay-per-views between the Rumble and WrestleMania, kind of setting up one of those tag team matches that they have. I mean, a couple years ago, let's say, well, it's more than a couple years ago now, but WrestleMania 23, I remember they had the 2 members of the main event on one side of WrestleMania 23 versus the 2 members, with John Cena teaming up with Shawn Michaels, taking down The Undertaker and Batista, and kind of maybe do something like that. Let's say Finn Balor's got a big matchup at WrestleMania. We already know what's going to happen. Maybe it's Bray Wyatt, maybe it's somebody else. But instead of obviously giving that away at Fastlane or Elimination Chamber, whichever pay-per-view right before WrestleMania, you kind of have Finn Balor teaming up with these guys, taking on, and maybe it's a Shield member. Maybe it's Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania.
That'd be cool.
So this would be a great kind of pay-per-view prior, the Shield versus the Bullet Club.
That would be kind of cool.
With the 2 captains being the ones that are going to face off at WrestleMania. I mean, that's what they had these Saturday Night Main events and these other events before WrestleMania. That's what they would normally do with them.
I've read some speculation that Ambrose's injury is not as severe as once thought, where he still has a possibility of making WrestleMania. I don't see that happening.
Some have said 3 months. Some have said 9 months. 3 months on the conservative end. I mean, we'll see.
I think he's closer to. I would be highly shocked if he's not back at SummerSlam.
I mean, no, I'd be shocked if he wasn't back at SummerSlam.
I would
be
save it for
shocked
SummerSlam.
I'm hoping he's back for WrestleMania, just because of the fact that I can see that they're still going pretty hard with the Shield thing, regardless of even if they have these guys going solo with Roman versus Brock or Seth versus somebody. I still feel they're going to have that big Shield presence, and I don't want them to have that. Obviously, if they don't have anything good behind it. For example, if they have Jason Jordan versus Seth Rollins, I don't want to see that at all.
I get that. Now let me ask you this: what did you think of the Reigns Samoa Joe match? I thought that was a solid match on Monday.
I like what they're doing with Reigns. He's starting to get some edge. He's starting to get some personality. He's gotten to that point where he's being treated. He's a face that acts like a heel, and it's.
I like that.
I like that too, because right now he's not taking on an outright face. He's not taking on a John Cena. He's taking on another heel. So he's kind of got that edge. And I feel that they're giving him that edge because they want to, again, put him in the main event at WrestleMania, but they don't want to just put him in the same, boo him out of the building situation.
I mean, where do you think he goes, like, matchup-wise at WrestleMania, if you had to pick a singles match for him?
I mean, if I had to guess, I'd probably say they're going to throw him up against Brock Lesnar. Because that's what they do. I mean, it's not that we want to see that. It's not that anybody is in favor of that, but that's what they've been doing.
Now, what do you make of this whole Jason Jordan thing right now? I thought it was interesting where, like, him and Seth Rollins have a very interesting dynamic going on. Like, pretty much like Seth Rollins comes out and says, "Man, you got to, your ego is getting, the best of you sometimes." Where it's like, "Oh, it's you versus the bar, and I have to come out. You're making me having to come out. You're putting me in a spot." So and then at the end of the match, you can see Rollins holding his hand up, and Jason Jordan's kind of like ignoring it. I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Like, is this going to be like Seth Rollins, the teacher, like the architect teaching this kid, all right, you need to, like, tone it down a little bit. You don't need to be as arrogant.
They're going to try to break Jason Jordan out and give him some edge if they're going to have him face Seth Rollins at WrestleMania. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's what they would probably have to do. I don't want to see it even if they do that. I just don't feel. I feel that he's ready from a wrestling standpoint. You don't really have to be too ready in WWE from a wrestling standpoint. I mean, this is the same place that gave us Snooki and, all these other celebrities at WrestleMania. So you don't have to be the top-notch performer to be on the card at WrestleMania, and there's more than enough matches. But I feel from the interest standpoint and the personality standpoint and the character standpoint, they have to give him some sort of edge, because right now he has, like, no edge at all. He's as cookie-cutter as can be. He's Kurt Angle.
He's Daddy's boy.
Right when he came in.
The fans were chanting Daddy's boy. That's... How bad does it get for a reaction?
I feel he needs a long, like, look at Kurt Angle. Look at the edge he had. Look at the importance he had. I mean, it took him years to get there. Yes, he had a great rookie year, but he had a great rookie year contending for the IC titles and the European titles. He won the World Championship, I want to say, a year after his debut, but I mean, he worked a year to get there. And I feel that Jason Jordan really needs to work a full year, to get that character.
In ring, I'm not worried about it. It's more getting that gimmick down. Absolutely, 100% agree with you on that. I think the gimmick just needs a little, needs some work. The in-ring, there's no doubt he has the tools in the ring. I mean, he's got the background. He wrestled. He was I think he was Division I wrestler at Indiana, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know Chad Gable has a similar background in the Olympics. So they have the guys like that have the background. But I have to say this, and not to bounce around too much, but Chad Gable has got quite the personality. I think his how he's coming off to the fans, I think is great. Transitioning into that, what did you think about that tag match? I was here's the thing. That's the great thing about WWE. When you have twins that they look they're identical, but the twins say they're not identical. I don't know. I'm not a twin, so I wouldn't understand that. But they look so much alike. So when they pinned the wrong Uso, and then Chad Gable was he wasn't legal, I was like, oh shoot, here we go. And as soon as the other referee came out, I knew they were going to start the match, and right away I knew the Usos were going to get the titles back. I'll be honest, I love the Usos, but I want to see Gable and Benjamin win the titles. I think I expect them to have the titles at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I don't really understand what the point of that was. Either give them the titles or don't give them the titles. I don't understand. You can have controversy, but why play it out as long as they did?
What are we trying to be, the NFL with the replay?
And why why did they play it out as long as they did? Like, let them get up the ramp with the belts before another referee came out. Why didn't they maybe make a quick count and then before they got the belts? Because that takes away from that celebration.
Yeah,
takes away if minutes later they just. They let them celebrate for a good 1 or 2 minutes before they made any sort of decision.
You can see the Usos ticked off, and then another referee, he comes down the aisle, and I'm like, oh, here we go. They're going to restart the match. And I knew right away the Usos were going to get the titles.
Yeah, whenever they do that, it's almost like a foregone conclusion.
It would have been cool if Benjamin and Gable got it.
That's what you get. That kind of reminds me of like a house show finish. Where all of a sudden, the person who's not champion wins the championship, and the crowd's like, oh my God, we just watched John Cena win the championship, and then all of a sudden a referee comes out and they restart the match.
Foot was on the rope or something. Something
and then
really.
all of a sudden the champion leaves, and it's, like it never happened. House show finish.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think that they should have done it as long as they did. It's fine with kind of a false finish, but a false finish with maybe the bell rings and then the referee comes out before they get their hands on the belt.
The only thing,
maybe with them celebrating, but before they get the belts.
The only logic behind this is maybe setting it up for them to go off, head to head, build this rivalry up for a little while to WrestleMania and have them have them go up for the titles at WrestleMania. And my thoughts, this is obviously going way ahead of the game, but I would like to see at that point, if it's the Usos versus Gable and Benjamin, I would love to see Gable and Benjamin win the titles at WrestleMania.
Well, I personally would like to see him win it maybe before that, or I feel at WrestleMania we're trying to get, in the world we live in now where they try to get everybody on the card. I feel like a one-on-one tag team match is probably not even feasible if. I feel every tag team on SmackDown and every tag team on Raw
is
going to be in a match.
What they should do then, if you're going to have a tag team match at WrestleMania like that, what I would do is you would do like a fatal four-way match, number one contenders match. So the winner is up next, so to speak. That's what I would do.
You want 5-hour WrestleMania to be 6-hour WrestleMania because now we have pre-tag team matches?
Yeah, why not? I'm good with it. More wrestling, the better for me, as long as it's good.
It is the new year, and that means it's a new year. Yes, it is. So we've got some New Year's resolutions, what we'd like to see in the world of professional wrestling in 2018. Whether we'll get our wishes, we'll find out. But we're going to reveal them next, as this is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.
The New York Jets are rising and are ready to compete in the AFC. Boy Green and Ty Butler will give you everything you need to know about the Jets every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. From reviewing the previous game and looking ahead to the next matchup, to all of the news and 4 downs, the Jet Zone has everything. Follow @BoyGreen25 and @TyDButler on Twitter. Proud member of Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
This program is simulcast on WRPR Rat Pack Radio. Go to ratpacksports.com for more information.
Do you want to stay up to date on the latest sports news? Come check out After the Whistle from 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday night. We talk about the NHL, we talk about the NFL, we talk about the MLB, you name it, we got it. Tune in on Sports War Radio.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Now is the time to get your voice heard. Sports War Radio is now accepting applications for driven and knowledgeable sports fans who want to start their very own podcast about their favorite team. Sports War Radio has an international audience and is growing fast. Don't miss the chance to become the go-to news source for your favorite team. Email sportswarradio@gmail.com and tell us why you would be a great addition to our team. Sports War Radio. Let the battle begin.
Let's get back to the action. This is the Heel to the Face podcast on Sports War Radio.
Heel to the Face podcast is back on the air after a quick break. It is time to return, and we are going to lead this segment off with our New Year's resolutions. This is the very first show of 2018, and we have 363 days as of recording till 2019, and here are the things we would like to see in the new year when it comes to the world of professional wrestling and sports entertainment. We've got our top 5 list. We're going to start with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements. What do you have for your number 5 of New Year's resolution in the world of pro wrestling?
Number 5 for me, it was, we were just talking about this particular superstar entering the Royal Rumble. I want to see Aleister Black on the main roster full-time by the end of 2018. He is too talented. His gimmick is too good. He's an all-around. He's too gifted to be down in the NXT roster any longer than he needs to be. I'm hoping maybe Royal Rumble, maybe WrestleMania. He's got to be up in 2018.
Well, you know how New Year's resolutions work. A lot of people, they start going to the gym and they fall right off all their New Year's resolutions. And, people who want to lose weight, let's be realistic. Some of these people that want to lose weight don't want to lose 50 pounds in 2018. They want to lose 50 pounds by the summer of 2018. So you can even modify that and say, not just that I want to see him in 2018, because I feel it'd be a real great travesty if somebody that talented didn't make it through the whole year. But you could even say, I want to see him by SummerSlam or by a time
I want to see him. If you want to put it that way, I want to see him by WrestleMania. I think we're going to get him at Royal Rumble.
See, that's more of a hot take, because with these NXT TakeOver shows that they got to sell, especially, right before these pay-per-views, I think they need to keep some of the names. And I feel that if he was here at WrestleMania, it'd be at WrestleMania, because before WrestleMania, they want to sell him and milk him in NXT a little bit longer.
I take that back. Monday or Tuesday after WrestleMania. There we go. I want to update that just a little bit, because I know we do get a lot of call-ups post-WrestleMania. So I like to change that Monday or Tuesday, the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania.
So we're going to kind of maybe rank these importance. I don't know exactly where they rank in importance, but I can say that what I'm about to say is probably the least important. But I've kind of noticed it. And that's on the network. I think it's time to put WCW Thunder on the network. Now, we have WCW Nitro, and we have all these old shows, but I find myself on the network watching more WCW than I do WWE, just for the fact that I was never a huge WCW guy, so going back and watching WCW is more unique. I have no need to watch WrestleMania 23 on the network. I've seen it about 1,000 times.
You already know what's going on
somewhere. And more like the Monday Night Raws. I've seen a ton of the Monday Night Raws already, and don't get me wrong, it's great that all the Monday Night Raws are on there, because there's a lot of rare gems out there. And in fact, we're going to get to some rare gems and some Monday Night Raw facts leading up to that 25th anniversary. But Nitro episodes, there's really a lot of things that fall through the cracks in WCW when it comes to these, berserker type characters that were in WCW that you're not aware of. Obviously, we know the Goldbergs, the Hogans, the Stings, but there's a lot of guys in WCW that might have not been good enough to make a pay-per-view. So you watch a Nitro and you're like, I didn't even know that. Like, for example, AJ Styles, he was in WCW.
Yes.
He was, on Nitro. He never really made it into, a pay-per-view status or something like that, but he made it into the fact that he was on a few Nitros.
Triple H was over WCW back
Triple
in
H was, he was there. I think they
Stone Cold Steve Austin,
and not just Thunder, but the Saturday night main events that Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin were on. They were obviously gone by the time Nitro came around, but they were on the some of the other programs.
Yeah.
And Thunder is one of those I'm not saying the wrestling's great. I'm not saying the wrestling's spectacular or anything like that. But there's just a lot of nuggets and a lot of rare things that watching Starrcade or watching Halloween Havoc, where you know these big main events, even if you weren't a WCW fan, the Thunders are where we're really going to find the real hidden gem. Maybe not hidden gems, but quirky, wacky things in WCW that if we didn't watch WCW at the time, we might not even know. I still see WCW superstars where I'm like, I never knew that guy was even in WCW, and I've been watching a lot of stuff on the network. So add some Thunder on there so we can watch David Arquette win the belt. I've already seen him defend it at Super Brawl or Slamboree or in the Triple Cage.
Yep.
Add the Thunder from the War Memorial in Syracuse where he won the belt, and let me see some more wacky and crazy, because to be honest with you, when you watch a lot of good wrestling, and wrestling is pretty good lately, you know, it's hard to go back. If you're going to go back, I'm more interested in watching kind of easy to watch things, and WCW is easy to watch because it's not about the great product. It's a lot of just quirky, wacky things that just entertain me for 10 or 15 minutes. So add more quirky, wacky, entertaining WCW content on the network in 2018. Brandon, what do you got for number 4?
This one we've also touched base on this, a few times, in almost the year we've been on the air, which is fantastic, by the way. I want to see the King of the Ring pay-per-view back. Watching this United States title, the championship tournament, it really brought back that fire for me. I'm like, I want to see a King of the Ring pay-per-view. I mean, there were so many superstars that were made because of the King of the Ring pay-per-view. I think Brock Lesnar was one of the guys that comes to mind, one of the main guys that comes to mind for me that did it. I mean, I want to see, let's get rid of one of the stupid pay-per-views that is useless.
And they've brought it back half-assed a few times where they make it like a part of a pay-per-view. Don't make the King of the Ring championship a part of Fastlane, because then it doesn't have its luster. Don't make the Royal Rumble
make it a whole pay-per-view
match. Don't, or a part of the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. What makes the Royal Rumble great is it's part of its own pay-per-view. What makes Survivor Series good is that it's at the Survivor Series pay-per-view. Make King of the Ring its own pay-per-view. I don't even care if you really just have the championship match at King of the Ring. By the match being called King of the Ring at the event called King of the Ring, that gives it importance. By calling it the King of the Ring finals at the Elimination Chamber or the King of the Ring finals
takes away that luster, man.
Then it's like not having it at all.
It takes away the luster, honestly.
Having the Royal Rumble at Battleground is not the Royal Rumble. It's just like a battle royal at Battleground.
Yeah, that's it.
So the King of the Ring at Battleground is just a match at Battleground. So if you want the actual King of the Ring to have its importance, where like a person like Edge has won in the past, or a person like Viscera, in which he went on to contend for the championship, or Brock Lesnar, where he went on to contend for the championship with that King of the Ring platform, then you got to have it at a pay-per-view named King of the Ring. I'm going to move on to my number 4, and I probably said this last year, and I said it the year before, but I kind of have a little twist on it. Shorter Monday Night Raw, but I understand that, you're not just going to give up an hour. So move one of your hour programs into that USA time slot so that Raw itself is not 3 hours long. We can have 3 hours of programming, but 2 hours of Raw, 1 hour of pre-show, 1 hour of 205 Live, this Facebook Watch stuff. You can move that over to the USA Network. I don't like Raw itself being 3 hours. Takes away from the pay-per-views. It's just draining. It's been draining. And, and then it will make it in the future when you want to do a 25th anniversary of Raw, or you want to do something special on Raw and you want to bring it back to 3 hours.
Yeah, that's cool.
It'll bring back the luster, because I used to love 3-hour Raws because they were treated like pay-per-views. Now that every Raw is 3 hours.
I feel like it's just stretched out too much.
It's just stretched out way too much. So what do you got for number 3, Brandon?
Number 3, this one, I don't know. I want to see what your thoughts are on this. Unify the titles. I'm sick of the Raw tag team titles and the SmackDown tag team titles. You got the Universal. To me, I just want the titles to be where they are. I mean, yes, United States Intercontinental. I guess that part works on the dual brand.
I never want to see the title switch. I feel that we're not going to see any unification anytime soon because
I want to see
just got split apart.
I know.
But I feel that we should have some unification on some of the belts. For example, the women's belt. I feel we should maybe have some unification on that. And have the champion go back and forth. Just keep that fresh.
I just want to me, having the brand split the way they are, which is a little teaser for my later resolutions we'll get to. Raw and SmackDown, I feel like, especially on Raw, there's 3 hours. You only have essentially half your roster available. You got the rest of them on SmackDown. To me, if you're going to keep a 3 hour Raw, you should have the accessibility to having all the talent available, or at least the majority of the talent, and bring him in. So if you want to call, at the last second, you want to say, hey, Randy, I need you to go do a spot for me, then you have that opportunity. Like right now, I mean, yes, we saw AJ Styles do it, but that was one of those weird scenarios. To me, I want to see it back together because I feel like it just waters down the product.
And maybe you can have the tag, and I think they did this when they did the first brand extension. The tag team belts are on one, and maybe, the Intercontinental and the USA title are on the other.
Maybe that's the way you could get around it.
Kind of how they do Raw. I mean, the cruiserweights are on Raw. They don't have a cruiserweight SmackDown. They have the cruiserweights are on Raw, and I understand they have their own show, but that segment, that demographic, they're never on SmackDown.
The only way the split works is like you already said. You want to have the champions travel to both shows. I mean, I get that. I understand that. To me, I just think overall it just waters down the product. That's just me, especially on a 3-hour program.
I mean, that's why they got rid of it. That's why it kind of faded away years ago. It's not just they got rid of it, but you notice they never just stopped having it. It slowly over time died and died and died and died. And I feel that's probably how it's going to end it again. It's not going to be just one day where the titles are unified. It's just going to just slowly,
gradually,
5-6 years down the road, we're just going to see it just gradually die. As I move on to talking about the cruiserweights, my number 3, better cruiserweights. There's a lot of great cruiserweights out there, and we saw on 205 Live Goldust in the cruiserweight picture. Don't know why he was on 205 Live. He was on Raw as well with the cruiserweights.
Odd placement.
That's starting to do the ECW route where we're starting to take people and we're starting to go in the wrong direction. Make the brand stronger. ECW did not do that when they brought in the Big Show and Bobby Lashley and started the WWE, and that's what I feel that they're doing with 205 Live. With Goldust. All right, that's just sticking your foot in into that avenue, but let's not go that way. There's so many great cruiserweights out there, and we can bring back some stars. That's what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of Hurricane Helms,
Rey Mysterio.
Like we see with this 205 Live tournament or this 205 Live tour coming up that they're talking about having it main evented by Matt Hardy versus Bray Wyatt. I'm sitting there thinking, why don't we bring in some stars? Rey Mysterio is a former world champion.
Absolutely.
He can main event a show. He fits in the 205 Live demographic while at the same time fitting in that I can main event a show at the same time. So bring in, Hurricane Helms. Bring him back. Bring back Rey Mysterio. I mean, there's some great guys who are some big names, in 205. CM Punk could even fit in the 205 Live, in that aspect if they ever brought him back. But I'm saying there's some good guys that they could bring in here that might not be used currently in that 205 Live.
Could we get away with like a John Morrison? He's like around that 205 range, isn't he? If I'm not mistaken, he's close. I don't know him. He might not be. He might be more like 220. But
I want to see it not have the secondary status. I want to see the Cruiserweight Championship have a main event caliber champion.
Well, if
Rey Mysterio was the Cruiserweight champion, that would be the best of both worlds because he fits as a Cruiserweight, but at the same time can main event a show. Same with what they're doing with the women's belt. The women's belt is one of those where, yes, it's its own belt. It's not the world heavyweight champion, but the holder of the women's belt can then main event a pay-per-view. If Rey Mysterio was Cruiserweight champion, at a Raw pay-per-view, the Cruiserweight Championship could main event that show with Rey Mysterio versus John Morrison as
that would be cool.
I mean, that's essentially, it's like what they did with ECW. ECW, it was a world championship, but at the same time, it was a world championship of an hour-long show that took place after SmackDown on Tuesday nights. That's what 205 Live is.
Here's the other thing too. There's a lot of NXT talents down there in the cruiserweight division, so to speak. They have that size. You could bring those guys up as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could definitely influx a lot. I want to see it to a point where not every cruiserweight might be on 205 Live that week.
Yeah, they could be on Raw or SmackDown.
Or when you go to a show, you'll see, same with NXT. If you go to an NXT show, you're going to see NXT superstars you've never seen on TV that are really that are in these dark matches, that are in these pre-NXT matches that fill up a whole 2.5 hour NXT show. When you watch an NXT pay-per-view, you notice you see a lot more than when you watch the hour-long program.
Sure.
Same with the cruiserweights. You can bring in cruiserweights that don't always have to be on 205 Live every week, but they can be there for when you make a tour and you come to Poughkeepsie, New York, and you want to put a 3-hour-long cruiserweight show on. You have these guys to do it with. But more importantly than that, I want to see some good names. I don't want to see Drew Gulak. I want to see Rey Mysterio. I want to see John Morrison. I want to see Hurricane Helms.
You know who they don't use enough? well enough, I should say, is Cedric Alexander. I don't think they use him well enough. I think he's a tremendous talent. I think he's one of the most underrated cruiserweights.
They are at least using him though.
Yes, they're using him, but I don't think they're using him the correct way. He should, to me, based on a talent standpoint and just how he carries himself, he should have been a cruiserweight champion by now. He's super talented.
So what is your number 2 New Year's resolution?
Number 2, I've kind of already touched base on it. It's Raw and SmackDown. Let's bring it all back together. I mean, it kind of goes along the lines of.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. Like we talked about this a little bit.
Raw's probably not going to be 2 hours, just the same.
True. I want to see the split. I mean, it goes along the lines of the unifying the titles. I just want to see the product not so watered down. Simple as that.
My number 2 is going to stay away from WWE for a second. Now, as we mentioned earlier in the show, we did not watch New Japan Pro Wrestling's Wrestle Kingdom. We know enough about New Japan Wrestling. And one thing, while I may not be the biggest fan of New Japan Wrestling in the sense of that it is not my favorite thing to be watching, and I try to keep up on it as best as I can, I do, though, not want to see it tailored to a Western audience. I've heard many people say this before, that if you took New Japan Wrestling and you brought it to America and you tried to tailor it to an American audience, then it's not New Japan Wrestling. So I want to see it stay the same. They ran a bunch of shows in the United States last year that all sold out. I'm not against them bringing New Japan Wrestling to America,
Absolutely.
selling out shows and doing that type of stuff. But I don't want to see them kind of turn New Japan Wrestling into, quote unquote, compete with the WWE. I want it to
let them be what they are.
I want them to be what they are, because I feel that when things try to compete with WWE, aka Impact Wrestling, they just
TNA,
become awful sports entertainment. New Japan Wrestling feels like something completely different. It feels like
it's a different audience. It's a different niche, so to speak, in the industry.
Yes.
Just like Ring of Honor is. It's a different niche in the industry of wrestling.
Yes. So I feel the things that they have, the Japanese customs that make it good too,
it's different.
The things that keep it different are what make it good. So, as much as the money's tempting, come here, run some shows in America, but don't all of a sudden be running Wrestle Kingdom, in New York City, and then having, it be tailored to an American audience with American celebrities. Keep it, kind of mixed where you have the stuff for American audience like Jericho versus Omega, Cody Rhodes, but at the same time, you keep your core audience, because the only way that's going to grow is by you being the best New Japan Pro Wrestling you can.
Absolutely.
And not trying to be WWE.
I couldn't agree more.
So, Brandon, what do you have for number 1?
We've already been we've touched base on this. My number 1, and it's one of our biggest gripes that we've had for a long time, is that yes, I've talked about the watered down product. 2-hour Raw. I know it's not going to happen because there's too much money to be made. I get it. I work in that side of the world. I work with numbers all day, every day. Aside from the show, I get it. But a 2-hour Raw is just better for the product as a whole. You might not, there's ways to make money in other ways. I just think it just waters down the product way too much. So a 2-hour Raw, I would like to see it. I don't think it's going to happen.
My number 1 is not going to be the product. It's going to be the presentation. I don't want to just specify one specific thing. We obviously talk about bringing back Pyro, but bring back the whole presentation. And this isn't talking, when we talk about numbers, this isn't something I'm asking WWE to go invest in. Lower the expectations if you can. Just change it up. When I go to a house show, they don't have Pyro, but they have a different stage. And what's cool about that different stage is the word I just mentioned, different. I'm not saying it's a better stage, but it's different. If you watch wrestling in 1998 in WWE, when you watch the pay-per-view, a lot of the pay-per-views had similar entrances that were very anti-elaborate, meaning that independent wrestling promotions could have the same entranceway that the Royal Rumble 98 or the King of the Ring 98 had, where it just had the little tiny ramp way with the little, circle entrance. But what's cool about it is it didn't look like Monday Night Raw. I don't care if they come out like it's 1985 with just their music playing, no entrance videos, and they come out of the locker room like it's a straight-up house show from 1994 with no ramp way at all. If it looks different, that's what I want to see. When it comes to pay-per-view events, bring back Pyro, bring back, some better theme music for the pay-per-view events themselves, but just overall a better presentation. And WWE knows this. They hear it all the time. They can probably watch when people are looking at on the network. They're watching these old SmackDowns, the old pay-per-views, a lot of times for these crazy sets and crazy gimmicks. I mean, what makes baseball good is, Major League Baseball is not going to ignore the fact that a lot of people are Googling all day long coolest baseball parks, coolest baseball stadiums. That's what kind of keeps baseball on the map. It's not just the game itself, but the parks are part of the show. WWE has said many times that it's like sports and a rock concert all at once. Return to that aspect. We're not just there to watch wrestling. We're there for the whole presentation. WWE
for the whole show
has the monopoly on the presentation. And lately, they've been just dropping, and they've been dropping fast. I think WrestleMania, they're going to have a great set like they always do. But the Royal Rumble, I mean, the perfect example, this year's Royal Rumble, the logo is the same as last year's Royal Rumble. And that was fine in 1993 when you didn't expect anything else. But you've shown us for then 20 years since 1993 that you've got some great creative design teams, and you're just getting lazy. So
yeah, I agree.
And
100%.
you're not doing it, and I don't think they're keeping the logo for tradition's sake from last year. I think they're doing it because they're lazy, because they realize, well, it was a fine logo. Let's just reuse that again. The same reason why they have the same sets for Raws, for SmackDowns. I mean, this is the reason, a lot of reason why ECW failed. If you go back and you watch some of the old ECWs, in 2006 when they rebranded it, it looked different. And then by 2010 when it was going out, it just looked like an episode of SmackDown.
Yeah.
And and that's the problem. I'm not saying SmackDown and Raw might have to have different sets, but the pay-per-views, and I'm not asking for elaborate sets. I'm asking just for something different. You go watch a pay-per-view from 98, 99. Some of those didn't even have Titantrons or video screens. They just had an entranceway where they came out from the locker rooms. That would be great because it would make me realize, hey, this is different than Raw. This is different than SmackDown. And that's what I want to see when I watch a pay-per-view. I want to see something different.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
And they don't need the elaborate sets a lot of times for pay-per-views because the one thing about pay-per-views is Raw, SmackDown focus on the dialogue that leads to the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view is, quote-unquote, the sporting event. It's all matches. So if you're building up matches and you're building up the conflict and not so much the back and forth jarring, you don't need a big elaborate set for Brock Lesnar versus Kane. You can throw that house show set out there. And, they've done it whenever they have these WWE live specials. They'll take a house show and they'll turn it into a quote-unquote pay-per-view, one night only from New York City or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a house show,
Absolutely.
and it kind of looks more like a pay-per-view than the pay-per-views do. The time they had the show from Japan, that looked more like a pay-per-view because when I turned it on, it was looking at something completely different.
You're like, whoa, this is different.
Yeah.
When you turn it on, you're like, whoa, this is not the usual show.
And then it spotlighted the match more. Like when Brock Lesnar fought in the main event against the Big Show or whoever he fought against, it spotlighted that match because then you're focusing less on the set. Having this big elaborate Monday Night Raw set makes me feel like I'm just watching Monday Night Raw, and then I lose the importance of that's Brock Lesnar versus Batista one-on-one in the ring at WrestleMania for the first time ever, when it just feels like the rest of it's Raw. The pay-per-views focus on the matches. They highlight the matches. They Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor, the matches where we don't need the surrounding. We just want to see those two people in the ring. And that shows that you don't need the elaborate set. And I feel that the elaborate set does not the elaborate set, but the Monday Night Raw set does the opposite because it's both an elaborate set and it's a same set. So it just makes you feel like you're watching Raw, and it takes away from the matches themselves. And I feel like a lot of times when a pay-per-view ends that I was not even watching a pay-per-view. So that is my number one New Year's resolution. As we move to finish off this week's program with our tweets of the week, we're going to start with you, Brandon. What is your tweet of the week?
My tweet of the week is I'm glad we were just talking about this. So it comes from our usual suspect, WWE Creative Humor. The tweet was, in 2018, our pancake budget is more than our pyro budget. Hashtag SmackDown Live. And I know you're the biggest guy, the biggest fan of the pyro. I know we've talked about it on the air, off the air, all of this. I just, when I saw that, I was thinking of our conversations, and it's like, what the hell is the point of freaking pancakes? Give me pyro. I don't need pancakes. I'll get pancakes at the local diner.
My tweet of the week comes from what we were talking about earlier, the reunion of the Bullet Club. It's a picture backstage after Monday Night Raw in front of a SUV with the license plate, the New York license plate, might I add, of Too Sweet. And it's from Carl Anderson saying, sometimes you just got to be patient, my friends. Patient, my friends. Here we go, indicating that, sometimes, you can chant Bullet Club, you can do all this stuff, and it might be in the works. You just got to be patient.
Just wait for it.
And wait for it.
It's coming.
And we saw Monday Night Raw.
We're seeing a little bit, yeah. We'll see. I mean, I think it's coming very soon. I mean, this full-blown thing. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
So that's going to do it for this week's edition of the program. Once again, our first show of 2018 next week. We will keep building up for the Royal Rumble, and we'll have a full breakdown of Wrestle Kingdom 12 from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Who even knew last year at this time? We were kind of just getting into the foray of this thing starting to take off. This year, No doubt about it, we were fully ready to go, and we'll break down Kenny Omega, Jericho, and the rest of the 6.5-hour event from Japan next week on the program. For Brandon the Icebreaker Clements, myself, Jared Wicks, you've been listening to the Heel to Face podcast on Sports War Radio, Rat Pack Radio, iTunes, and on YouTube.